Boss design is one of the single most important aspects of a From Software game, and many would say Elden Ring's bosses are the best we've ever seen. If you think this, you are not wrong. Elden Ring bosses are amazing, and if you have no complaints, this video will probably not appeal to you. But if you're like me and love and adore Elden Ring, but have a seeping hole in your heart that Elden Ring doesn't feel, then maybe this video is for you. Every From Software game has a core mechanic that it is teaching you throughout the game. Demon's Souls will be learning to adapt specifically to the way in which to kill a boss, with each boss having one significant mechanic you must overcome, such as the boss being blind, or simply for Flame Lurker, learning to be a little bitch boy and running the heck away. Dark Souls 1 doubled down on what made Flame Lurker so popular, and went for a mix of learning to perform perfect dodges and shield play, removing heavy mechanics that made killing bosses in Demon's Souls flawless and easy in future playthroughs. Now, this is important because this decision meant bosses like Tower Knight would not be made anymore. This is also a good way of seeing the thought process From Software has when it comes to boss design. Dark Souls 2 was the first game not worked on by the A team, and instead worked on by what people now call the B team. Dark Souls 2 did nothing to change the formula, but it did have a lot of gank encounters that were possibly heavily inspired by Ornstein and Smough. But sadly, it seemed they didn't quite understand what made this encounter so popular. Then, Bloodborne released, and I think it's safe to say they grabbed Dark Souls' philosophy by the balls, completely removing the shield and replacing it with a gun, removing the ability to even block, in turn doubling down on perfect parries, and also heavily increasing movement capabilities. This game, if you couldn't guess, was made by the A team and was worked on straight after Dark Souls 1 DLC was complete. So I think you can guess what boss they designed Bloodborne off. Dark Souls 3 then put the shield back in your hand with a similar fast pace from Bloodborne, but balanced around Dark Souls' philosophy. But Dark Souls 3 also began to experiment with things like weapon arts, although fun, were not the sole focus. Then Elden Ring released. Initially, you will notice guard countering, but then you get to the first boss, and you get absolutely railed. Guard countering doesn't particularly work against him, or much anything else in the game, and is clearly just a niche mechanic, much like how weapon arts were in Dark Souls 3. So, how do I kill this massive ruling boss in front of me? What's the mechanic I must learn to beat him? Where is my core fighting mechanic you want me to learn and master? To my disappointment, this game's core fighting mechanic, the reason Miyazaki said this game will be the one that everyone will finish most likely, like the most, is because your core fighting mechanic is summoning a summon to help you fight. There's really nothing else to say about this. I think me literally saying that the core mechanic is fighting with a summon answers everyone's question. I think everyone knew this, like everyone knows this. I'm just bringing it to the forefront right now. That's all I really have to say, because there's nothing really to say about it. That's it. That's it. Why? Dark Souls has always been a game with magic as an option, and has always had different ways of approaching, but now, in Elden Ring, we are so strong from afar, whether it's Ashes of War or magic, they must either make the bosses do ridiculous amounts of damage, or have insane combos. Do you know why we love Slave Knight Gale? It's because he has some of the most insane combos ever in a FromSoft game, but he is still approachable, because he's built around a 1v1 scenario. Summons aren't taken into the equation, and just because we love Slave Knight Gale, doesn't mean we want every boss to be Slave Knight Gale. Look, I get it. Artorias was praised for his fast-paced combat, and then he designed Bloodborne around this philosophy, and it worked so freaking well. It's worked so freaking well every other time you've based a boss or a game off a boss. And it would have worked well for Slave Knight Gale. There was just one problem. Summons funneled the game into one terrible playstyle. I know From Software developers sat down and said, guys, this just doesn't feel as good. But it still came to fruition, which saddens me. But I also blame every single dumbass that asked for From Software games to be easier or have multiple difficulties, because having summons so heavily built into the game was also to get them to shut up. And they still complained! I would like to think that a lot of the gank encounters we experience would have been removed or changed in this game without summons, because not a single gank encounter we get here is good. It blows my freaking mind that it's been 11 years and we've only ever got one gank encounter that can even hold a candle to Ornstein and Smough, and that's Sister Fried and Father Ariandel. Every gank encounter in Elden Ring is poorly designed. All they do is chuck two bosses you've already fought together and call it a day. With obviously the worst offender being Godskin Duo, which is funny because they have the most resemblance to Ornstein and Smough we've ever got in terms of, you know, what they look like. Just without the finesse, I guess. I don't know. From Software, what happened? What happened to gank encounters with unique bosses? Like, seriously, it's like they got confused between Ornstein and Smough and the Bell Gargoyles in Dark Souls 1. Like, did you think that we loved Bell Gargoyles, or like, what happened? I'm so confused. Did you guys really get confused? I'm seriously asking you a serious question. Did you guys think that we'd liked Bell Gargoyles more than Ornstein and Smough in Dark Souls 1? I'm seriously asking you, like, seriously tell me, because I don't know what the thought process is. You guys just getting lazy? Is that what's going on with the gank encounters? Because the gank encounters are just getting worse. One thing a lot of people probably expect me to say is that there's too many duplicate bosses in the game, which is true. But to be honest, I don't mind this for the most part, because my thought process is that if the duplicate boss wasn't there, then there would be no boss there at all. I also like to think that when I see a duplicate boss, I can use it as a skill check to see how much I've improved at fighting that boss. But there is a few instances where I think the duplicate bosses were just lazy. For example, with the Crucible Knights, they remind me very much of the Valkyries from God of War, but they're just shit. And they aren't seen as a duplicate boss in God of War either, because they all have a unique look, different fighting styles, and movesets. They could have done this, but due to, I'm guessing, time constraints, I'm presuming, probably, I don't know, they ended up only doing 2 variants of the boss, and only 2 named Crucible Knights for that matter. You're telling me that you couldn't even think of any other names for them? You just named 2 of them, and yeah, that's fine, we only need 2 of them to be named, like, who cares, you know, that's fine. The hardest bosses in a From Software game have always been looked upon as the best bosses in that respective game. A mixed bag of everything you have learned, all packed into one boss to give you the hardest experience you'll have in that game. Bosses that come to mind when I say this are Flame Lurker from Demon Souls, Artorias the Abysswalker and Ornstein and Smough from Dark Souls 1, Doom Knight from Dark Souls 2, Nameless King and Slave Knight Gale from Dark Souls 3, and Ludwig and Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne. All these bosses are the hardest in their respective games and also considered the best bosses, I would say. But then we get to Elden Ring's hardest bosses. Every single person that has played Elden Ring knows exactly what 2 bosses I'm about to say, and that's funny, because not a single one of you would put these bosses as the best in the game. They didn't even hold a candle to the bosses I've said previously, and they are Malenia, I don't give a fuck, bitch, and Godskin Duo. There's not a lot to be said that hasn't already been said about these 2 bosses. We know they are, for the most part, bad. Yes, a lot of what Malenia brings to the table is mostly fine, but put all together creates an absolute nightmare of a boss. The attack Waterfowl is absolutely ridiculous, but after a while you learn that she only does it at certain times of the fight, and you just must wait and bait it up, which is why I think a lot of people don't like this attack, because it's the first time From Software have really ever used this type of mechanic in a boss fight. My only problem with this type of attack is sometimes the AI will randomly break, or just do it a lot. I don't know if it's breaking, I think it's breaking, well, they'll do it a lot, and that's where it begins to be unfair, because if you are caught close to her, there is no possible way of dodging it, and that's where I think I get the most frustrated in this game. So many bosses have attacks that will happen so fast, there is physically no possible way of dodging it. Attacks like Melena's Prosthesis Rapid Attack and Godskin Noble's Belly Shove just shouldn't be in the game. These types of attacks is where I think they cross the line in combat, especially now that every new game they are also updating the AI to be smarter, so that now the attacks they are doing are no longer so random. Like, don't even bother going for a heal in the Godskin Duo battle, because you can bet your ass they are both about to input read the shit out of you and blast your ass to Kingdom Come with fireballs. There's probably some things here and there that I have left out, but generally I think this is why Elden Ring lacks what makes its predecessors so good. But that's not to say that its predecessors don't have their problems either, and Elden Ring definitely does improve upon a lot of things. I hope that From Software are super proud of what they have accomplished here, as they should be. Anyways, that's all from me. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to check out my Twitch, or I'll hack into your Elden Ring account and kill all your NPCs. I'm serious. I'm like so freaking serious right now. I will do it. I'll do it. But yeah, seriously guys, thanks for watching. Stay weary, everyone.
Sed ne